Jnana Saravaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Ajnulambita Bhujo Anagavadato Sankirtanai Kapikaro Amalaya Dakshu Vishwamuro Dvijaro Yugadhana Paro Devagat Priyakaro Karunavotaro Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahodito Gaudadari Pushpavanto Chitra Santo Vandeham Sri Ramakrishna Abhaya Chanasako Sukado Paramanando Sundaro Svahapriyo He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopikananda Radha Namaste Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Pranamami Haripriye Pranamami Haripriye Shri Gauri Vaishnava Guru Parampara ki Jai Bhakti Vrinda ki Jai Om Premanande. Well, good evening, everyone. Nice to be here. We have been discussing for about a week or so now about the Govardhan Leela related topics, and we have centered our discussions on the anga or limb of the body of bhakti called Saranagati. And the reason for that, of course, as we've been discussing, is that the Govardhan Leela is a Leela in which this anga of bhakti is showcased. Central focus of Saranagati, which means surrender. You might have heard the term surrender. What does it mean? Well, it's something, of course, that we discussed the history of the term and whatnot, and the extent to which it is very prominent in the Bhaktivinoda part. Coming from Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he very much held on to this anga, wrote a songbook, a number of songs which serve to illustrate or give further import to the different limbs of Saranagati, which are sixfold: to accept what's favorable for bhakti, to reject what's unfavorable, to live in the world with the sense, well, to accept what's favorable, to reject what's unfavorable to bhakti. And the mood behind it, of course, Bhaktivinoda Thakur has pointed out through his songbook and through his other writings where he emphasizes Saranagati. There's a mood for this. This is some kind of pratigya. It means like a commitment, a vow. I will accept what's favorable. I will reject what's unfavorable. It's very powerful. You can think about that, because what is favorable to us or unfavorable to us may not be favorable to bhakti. Indeed, it will foster the very sense of false identity that we have. Our false identity is, in effect, what we think is favorable to our senses and mind, and what we think is unfavorable. Oh, so-and-so, what does he like? Well, he doesn't like this, he likes that. He thinks he likes the tropics, he doesn't like the north, he likes the south, So our likes and dislikes, we get impressions from the world, if you will, through the senses that relate to the mind, and sankalpa vikalpa. It accepts some, rejects some, and I like this, I don't like that. That's the small world, if you will, of our mind. Like within, it's not such a sovereign domain, world of our mind. It's very small, it's very narrow, and we very foolishly think everyone should fit inside of it and agree with me. Why don't they? There's a good reason. to come out from the world of our mind, the small world there, and see the bigger picture in which, well, we're small. We're not the center. I mean, we don't go around, hopefully, overtly, some do, but most of us thinking I'm the center, but it's implicit. It is what we do. We take in impressions of the world in terms of our limited sense of self, and so this is a problem, right? So, as we know, Kamandriya, Priti, Vancha, what is it? Krishnendriya, Priti, Vancha, Prem. Kam is the love of the senses, and Prem is the love of Krishna's senses. When we use our senses to satisfy the senses of Krishna, well, another identity will arise than the one that we have that arises out of using our senses for their own sense or in relation to their mandates, dictates, the senses of the mind, that is, right? They're very unreasonable. They don't even agree with one another, right? The stomach may say, for example, it's not a sense, but anyway, an urge, I'm full, but the tongue may insist that you should take more. Uncomfortable under their rule, if you will. Very, it's a dictatorship, and it's not a benevolent one, if you will. So the my, I've often said, our sense of my is what our sense of I derives from. But actually nothing is ours, everything is here today and gone tomorrow. So the I that arises out of that is illusory as well. We foster that idea by making the standard of our acceptance of what is favorable and rejection of what is unfavorable the dictates of our mind and senses. So see, this Saranagati really goes to the very core of the problem of our false identity. It doesn't tell us to tear down the building. It just says jack it up, put a new foundation in. The building can be there. Just, of course, it's not so easy to jack up a building and put a new foundation in, but it's, it's easier, they say, and less costly than tearing the whole thing down and starting over again, right? So we put in a new foundation. We're trying to hear something that we know, and that's then have to let it into the heart, and let it become a foundational stone in the temple of bhakti that we're building therein, right? So think about it practically. Well, if we accept what's favorable for bhakti and we reject what's unfavorable, now we have a new standard of likes and dislikes that's otherworldly. And as such, we transcend the likes and dislikes, the duality of material existence. Right? Krishna tells us in Gita, what does he say? Tam sitikshashva bharata, sitoshna sukha agama paino nitya tam sitikshashva bharata. Well, there's hot and cold, good and bad, happy, sad for you, and it could be the opposite for me. And these are all products of the senses and the mind. And in that sloka, Gita, in that verse, he said, well, you should tolerate that. And the next verse, he says, what are the virtues of tolerating it? Well, by tolerating it, you can go beyond it. So in the Gyan Marg, for example, they get it. Gyan Marg means the path of knowledge, not the path of love, which is the higher knowledge. Good point to remember. But the path of knowledge unto itself, then they think, yeah, I mean, this is the Buddha, this is his head, right? The head of God, the Buddha. He says, the problem in life is suffering. The cause is Trishna, not Krishna, Trishna. The thirst for things, the want. We want things, so we of course we get them, they don't turn out to be what we thought they were, and so forth. And even if we get them and we like them, and they're everything we thought they would be, we can't keep them. So Krishna says in Gita, similarly, what does he say? He says, Dukkhalayam ashashvatam. the world is summed up in this way. It's a place of misery and temporality. So even if you like it, well, the problem is that much worse because you can't keep it now. I like it. I got it. I know I can't keep it. So happiness is one side of the coin. The other side is unhappiness, distress. That's material existence. We ride the waves of trying to get happiness and avoid distress. But as high as we go is as low as we'll go. When you get those happy, I got it. I won a lot. Whatever it is, just hang on there. It's like a roller coaster. You'll go down the other side. So all spiritual life, of course, is about not riding these waves, but equanimity, balance, right? By focusing on something else. And the Gyan Marg gets to, of course, focus on there's a self, an Atma. It's different than the body-mind complex, and so on and so forth. So tolerate. So they tolerate. And in order to push the tolerance that Krishna speaks about in the Gita of the happies and sads, goods and bads that are just mental products. It's all in the mind. I mean, that's a big thing, but that's where it is. There's no pain in the body. It's all in the mind. If the mind's not connected to the sense, then you won't feel it. So in order to play this out, they will expose themselves to extremes like bathing in the Ganga at Haridwar in January, February at night. It's cold up to the neck, and they'll say, it's all in the mind. Or they'll sit in the summer heat by a fire at noon and say, tolerate the heat. This is their method to get beyond the dualities of material existence, which gives us a false perception of what's out there. I often say life is about, in one sense, two questions. What's out there? And who's asking the question? The subjective, the objective realm, the subjective realm, are they the same? Are they different? Is there a duality between any? There's a lot of philosophy about this issue. This is a relevant topic in our times, and it always will be, right? In human society. What's out there? And who's asking the question? So through the senses, we get a false reading of what's out there. We react accordingly to it, and then it is created, and off we go, right? So they try the Gyanis to overcome that by tolerance, the virtues of which Krishna said, well, by this tolerance, you will gradually rise above the dualities. But the devotees, what we're talking about here in Saranagati, to accomplish the same thing, accept what's favorable for bhakti, reject what's unfavorable. We have a new criteria now. Good and bad, happy and sad has nothing to do with the senses related to the mind and how the mind would react. The mind might react, it's too early to get up. Can't even see. There's no light. I mean, of course, we can turn on the light, but the time's gone by. There was no electricity. Right? It would be time to get up in the dark and light the ghee lamp and shine it on Bhagwan. Right? Mangalartik. So this is an auspicious time, right? To rise before the sun. Right? But the mind might say it's too early. But we don't. I'm just giving a simple example. So we don't listen to that, and we accept what's favorable. So we in this embracing these two limbs of Sharanagati, we very quickly, if we can do it fully, which is a more friendly way to do it. I mean, it's nicer to go to Mangalartik than it is to stand in the Ganges up to your neck at midnight. You might get carried away in the stream. It's pretty strong there at Haridwar on the way. It's not easy, but it's comparatively, it's much more user friendly. We say bhakti is easy. You might think, I don't think it's that easy, Guru. But it's comparative. Yoga is another discipline, right? Jnana is a discipline. That's also much more difficult. There's much more that's required in order to practice Ashtanga yoga, then you have to be celibate. Well, okay, cancel that out. Let the yoga community know. It's not going to work. Its full efficacy will not be realized there. So bhakti, of course, is not like jnana and yoga governed by sattva guna. It's governed by the nirguna, by transcendence. It's coming from the other side. So it has great power. Therefore, it doesn't require other criterion in order to tread the path. The eligibility is faith, and faith is, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Saranagati. That's the outer expression of this kind of abstract idea of faith. What is it? What shows up as Saranagati is how it pragmatically, practically it's understood. Oh, she has faith, because in at least she or he is endeavoring to accept what's favorable seriously, to reject what's unfavorable, and this is the the do or die of sadhana bhakti. It's beautiful to be a sadhaka, and it's very pleasant as you do you go forward, and you have experiences, of course, that confirm that, right? And the paths of bhakti proper, a wave of ecstasy. Very gracious confirming more than all the philosophy we've read and everything we've been told, and so on and so forth. So in time, then, as we're successful in this way of dealing with the mind, accepting what's favorable, rejecting what's unfavorable, we can rise above the dualities of material existence. So these two, and the mood is a commitment behind it. If you want to be successful in samkalpa, vikalpa, or anukul, pratikul, same thing. Accepting favorable, rejecting the unfavorable, it takes the commitment. So we're not here just to talk about something and retain everybody, right? The idea is, now, if you want to cure all of your problems, well, there's one way to do it, and it will take all you got. So what you give all you have to one discipline, bhakti, and you'll be successful. And gradually, you'll be able to eliminate things that you see. This is not helping me. This is not helping me. You get a little help, and this is where I want to be. What he said, what she said, that's true. I resonate with that, and I felt it to some extent. So gradually, then the tree matures and its leaves fall off. Right? I'm not advocating artificial renunciation, but we are advocating growing the tree, watering the tree, plucking out the weeds, fertilizing it, taking care of it. It's what we're doing. And some other things are there too in the background. Now we do so many things, and they're in the foreground, and our bhakti is the muzak in the background. Yeah, that's there. Every now and then a sadhu comes to town, it comes to the foreground. And he leaves, she leaves, and goes to the background. And what's important, the first thing I put down is my bhakti. I'll put that can wait, but this has to be done, that has to be done. So gradually we have to reverse this. This is the work, the task at hand. And everything else becomes muzak. That's what it is. It's just expiring. It's expiring. The parabdha, manifest karma. That bhakti has the power to eradicate parabdha karma. Knowledge unto itself cannot do that, transcendental knowledge, but bhakti has that power. That means in this life, you'll get a new father. Your parabdha karma is you have a certain father and mother. Well, how can you change that, right? You can change that. In bhakti, they'll change. You'll get a new father. You get a new mother. You can start to think, Nanda is my father, Yashoda is my mother. Just like Pranay, Who's his mother? Who's her mother? Is it Pranam? Right? Who's her mother? She sits on your lap. She sits on your lap. Right? She was at your house today, right? And Managopal said, okay, Pranay, we're going. She said, okay, goodbye. No, you're supposed to come with us. No, goodbye. I'm staying here now. It's another room in the same house. Very nice community that they have here. It's very un-American, unmodern, but very attractive. So they are the paradigmatic figures, or Vrishabhanu Maharaj and Kirtidra, mother and father of Radharani. They're like paradigmatic mother-father figures. Start there. And in Bhava Bhakti, you'll get a new family, right? To enter the Leela, you have to have a father, you have to have a mother. So that means the whole Prarabdha karma can be changed. Like they say, you can't cure the cold, you just have to wait 6 days. With Bhakti, if you call the cold Prarabdha karma, it can change the Prarabdha karma. Gyan cannot do that. So it's very powerful, very generous. It goes post-liberated and it extends to the lowest, who unqualified for other practices. So gradually, we have to make effort. We have to make effort, and in the effort, it's actually it's not like standing in the river. It's very nice. I told one of my students that, well, he wanted second initiation. He was only chanting 8 rounds. I said, oh, you have to chant 16 rounds to get the second initiation. So he tried it. He said, hey, it's pretty good. Like it. It's time well spent, right? Even if it's hard when you do it, because the mind is distracted, after you do it, at the time, you feel there's a residual kind of results. Even though taste may be lacking, it may not be spontaneous. It doesn't feel that your name is dancing on your tongue yet. Nonetheless, the time spent trying this yoga to fix the mind on Krishna Nam, such a generous form of God, the name of God, it has very positive effect on our life. So you have to try, and this is the whole thing. You have to make, especially householder, we have other duties, responsibilities. So it has to be something that kind of goes on automatic. It becomes the music, and it can be done better. It can be done better. You can be a better mother. You can be a better father. Actually, you can be. It's not that in bhakti, if you're a married person, you have children, for example, and so forth, that you have to leave that situation. Bhaktivinoda had, I think, 12 children. So when I say it becomes a music, it doesn't mean like, drive yourself to school, or something like that. You can actually do it better because now you're observing it for what it is, and it's a role that you're playing. This is what Baladevi Bhushan refers to as parinishta, sunishta, parinishta, and nirapeksha. 3 types of devotees. Sanishta means he or she wants things from bhakti, like go to heaven. So parinishta means I don't want anything. Amikichu China. I only want bhakti. But I'm in the world, I have family, so I have some responsibilities. So I carry that out very dutifully. What did Mahaprabhu tell Rupa and Sanatan? They wanted to join him. They weren't even family people, but they were engaged by the Muslim Nawab Hussain, right? Nawab Hussain Saab, and they were prominent members in the government. Mahaprabhu wrote them, and he said, "No, stay where you are. Don't neglect your duties there. Of course, they might cut off your head if you do that, but don't neglect your duties." And he said, just like a Parakiya lover, she has another lover other than her husband. and she does not want to be found out. So she's more dutiful to all the family responsibilities than before, driven by the love that shows up. This is an example, but it's appropriate given what Gaudiya Vaishnavism is about ultimately. In order to secure that position, that eloping or whatever, that paramour lover, she's more dutiful to the everyday dealings. So she's not suspect at all. This is the idea. So this is the kind of household we have. This is called parinishta. So in the varnashram system, for example, the social system of times gone by, then there were certain responsibilities. And so these things have nothing to do with bhakti. That's a different path, right? If you don't follow varnashram, or you do, it won't hurt or help your bhakti if you have the requisite faith to tread the path of bhakti in the first place. To think that bhakti will be enhanced by the karma marg and adherence to its injunctions, or that it will be defective by not doing so, is to have one's bhakti covered by karma. Right? So the parinishta devotee lives in the world according to the varnashram standards and duties and responsibilities very nicely. And she doesn't think that my bhakti is going to be enhanced by this, or if I don't, it'll be defective, it'll impede my bhakti. But just to set example for other people who then think, such a nice, respectable person you are, you so religious. And then, of course, they come over for lunch and find out, that they're actually on the bhakti marg that stands on the head of varnashram. And then they're just going through the motions of that, right? Carefully. And then they become a nirapeksha, of course. It may happen, a renunciate. Then you don't have any duties. Then you can do whatever you want. That's what Prabhupada told me. You're a preacher. There are no rules. So, beyond, anyways, accepting the favorable, rejecting the unfavorable. We haven't gone into this in detail, so it's worth going into. I wasn't going to speak on it like this tonight, but it seems it's worthwhile. We come to another anga of Saranagati, which is Rakshik Shatri Vishvashvo. It means to accept Krishna as my protector. So, whatever happens to you, there are all kinds of things that could happen, right? Even the threat of your own biological self, your mind could be disturbed by somebody. Does that ever happen? And so, that like, who's the example? What did she do? Draupadi. Yeah, he got it. She's in Sakiras, so she called out, Govinda, right? And held on to the sari when she was being disrobed by the enemies of the Pandavas, right? Held on to her sari, and with one hand she raised up Govinda. Govinda, of course, this is a beautiful name for Sakura. She's a Puri Sambandhi, so she's a city friend of Krishna, like Arjuna, not like the village friends of Krishna, but it's a form of Sakirasa. Anyway, she called Govinda and held on to the sari, but it wasn't working, right? So she put both hands up. That's Saranagati. Krishna is my protector. Govinda, and then the sari was unlimited, right? Couldn't be unraveled. So this is a nice example, accepting Krishna as my protector. Right? Should we call on Krishna to help us? Yep. I don't want Krishna to help me. I want to serve Krishna, but in Saranagati, that will help us. That will help us to develop a tendency for this. It will help to develop. It will create some scars for remembering Krishna, taking shelter of him. So to think of Krishna as one's protector, and to think of Krishna, that Krishna is my maintainer. Now this is that, or I should say, the mood behind thinking of Krishna as my protector is Rakshishati Vishvash. Vishvash means confidence. It's not pride, it's a confidence. It means faith, but it means conviction. More conviction. I've the mood behind Krishna is my protector. Conviction. Play it out. Just play it out. Krishna will protect me. Think of the march into the mouth of Aghasura. This is another, they're showing. Is it a cave or is it a serpent? Either way, yeah. It looks like worth exploring. Boys will be boys, and Krishna will protect us. They marched into the mouth of the jaws of death, of course. Krishna protected them. Bhaktivinoda has a nice song, Atma Samarpane, in his Saranagati songbook, in relation to this anga of thinking of Krishna as one's protector. And he says, "So Krishna, make me a cow, take me out cow herding, and you will protect me. We'll meet Aghasur and Banasur, not Banasur, but whatever, Bakasur, Vatsasur first. Bakasur is the beginning of the coward's experience of Krishna's heroics, right? Vatsasur, Bakasur, then Aghasur, so on and so forth. So he mentions all that, and Aghasur will come, and Krishna will protect me in this way. It's very nice. So a nice meditation. Then from there we go to Prithve Varanam Tata. And the mood behind this, that Krishna is my maintainer, is a sense of dependence. And this is said to be the Swarup Lakshana of Sharanagati, that the central anga that the others serve in a sense. And this, of course, we see prominently in the Govardhan Leela, right? There, and this is where now from the Bhagavatam, we're drawn back, we're deep into the 10th canto, and we're drawn back to the very beginning, to the second verse. Dharma projita kaitavutra paramo nirmat saranam satam. And from that, we think that, we hear that, and we go, oh, right back to the end of the Bhagavad Gita. Sarvadharman vrittacha mamekam sharanam braja amtvam sarvabhati mokshasham masucha. This is the conclusion of the Gita, right? It's Sharanagati. Sarvadharman means give up the worship of Indra. That's what it means. Dharma means Varnashram, all the gods, the goddesses. As Krishna's already taught Arjuna, they only have the power to do what they do because I give them the power. So why worship them? Worship me. They do. Why don't you do? They're gods. They worship me. I'm human. So are you. You should worship me. We're more alike. You and I are more alike than the gods and I. He reasons with Arjuna along these lines. And this is what he says at the end, right? Usharanagati. Sarvadharman, Pratitya means give. It also means that give up yoga, give up jnana, give up all the other methods. I've talked about them in different ways. This is how I teach. I'm teaching only about one thing in this book, Bhagavad Gita. He says, this is the king of knowledge, Raja Vidya, right? He says it in the center. He says it at the end. And he says it throughout. Anyas Chintayantomam Yedana Paripasa. He repeats throughout. Ananya Bhakti, Unalloyed Bhakti. He teaches directly about it, and he teaches indirectly about it by saying, now there's also the Varnashram path. There's also yoga, Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga. He's talking about that, what's not Ananya Bhakti, what its virtues are, and in comparison to Ananya Bhakti, well, it pales. He's pointing all this out. So at the end, he says, so all these things, all these dharmas, if you will, these ways that are advocated in the sacred text and so forth, for different people who have different eligibility and may be attracted for different reasons. If you want to know the truth, Arjun, give up all that stuff and do one thing only. Mamekam Sharanam. Mamekam Sharanam Braj. Come to me and me alone. And everything that you did that you could have got by karma, by gyan, by yoga, every god that you could have liked, what's likable about him or any goddess, it's all in me. In Braj, all there, everything, their perfect Varnashram is there. You got a Brahmin like Madhu Mangal. That is the perfect example of Brahmanism. There are sages there. Everything's there. Just study carefully, you'll see what I mean. But whatever can be accomplished, whatever can be achieved, whatever is the fruit of any other process, is all included in Bhakti to Krishna, and much, 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 much more. Right? So this is what he means. So he says, Gyan, yoga, karma, all the things. He's saying, give up the worship of Indra and do Saranagati. Mamekam Sharanam Braja. Braja means, come to me. It's a verb. Pujapad Sridhar, as I said the other night, he really liked that because the word Braj also refers as a noun to Krishna's Braj Leela, right? Place of Swayam Bhagavan. So he said, well, when Krishna said Braj, in his own mind, he heard Braj coming out of his mouth. His mind went to Braj. And that was the end of the Bhagavad Gita. He couldn't speak after that. He's there at Kurukshetra, right? Dharma Kshetra, to speak about Dharma. And Prema Dharma comes to the surface sometimes. Right? And this is the essence of the Gita. And our Gaudiya acharyas, of course, have brought that out. So that last verse of the Gita, this is what the Gita is doing, is there is opening the door to the Bhagavatam. This is the doorway to understanding the Bhagavatam, which begins Dharma Projita Gaita Buddha Paramonian Mansaranam. It says the exact same thing. This book is not about Dharma, karma mark, gyan, yoga, anything else. It's not about that. To the extent that it's talked about here, it's talked about to differentiate it from Ananya Bhakti, like the Gita, and thereby showcase the virtues of Ananya Bhakti indirectly. And it's only about me and my avatars. They're my avatars. Avatar Tattva is there. In Bhagavatam, it is a sheltered topic, and I am the shelter. The other 9 topics, creation, secondary, primary, so many things, Avatar Tattva. So the Gita opens the door. Probably say it's the world of spiritual intelligence, and Bhagavatam is the spiritual life itself. Spiritualize your intellect and open the door to Saranagati. Spiritualize your intellect and understand its limitations. This is how to know everything. That's how you know. You don't know because you have a mind or a good intellect or a high IQ. That's not how we know. We don't see because we have eyes. They get in the way of our seeing. The head gets in the way of our knowing in the full sense of the term, the kind of knowing upon which arriving at one knows there's nothing more that needs to be known. And there's something to do. And it's effortless. It's the labor of love for the perfect object of love. And I can be busy at it 24 hours a day and never tire. Never tire. Gyan cancels karma. Karma cancels gyan. Karma is ignorance, attachment to things in the pursuit of enduring life when the things don't endure, in pursuit of enduring happiness when the things have no happiness inherent in them whatsoever. That's ignorance. moving about in ignorance. Gyan cancels out karma. You get knowledge, you go, what the hell am I doing that for? Sit down and be. Just you already are more than anything you could try to become. You already are by adding things on to yourself. Let all that stuff go. Uncover yourself. You are more. So karma cancels out gyan. Gyan cancels out karma. They're both about the world. One is Rajaguna governed. One is Sattva governed. One is trying to capture the world, exploit the world. The other is trying to get away from the world. Krishna says it in the Bhagavatam. When he says, "Mai bhakti bhutanam tvaya kalpate," tells the gopis, "I don't know what to do with you." He says, "People come to me for things, and people come to me to get away from things. That doesn't do much for me. I can give them things. I can help them get away from things. If they're not interested in me, they want things from me. Thank you. See you later when I need something more. Or let me get away from things. Thank you. Now I can just sit, do nothing. Free, not bound by any necessity. But I don't need you either. Thanks. This does nothing for me." He says, other people worship me, but they keep a distance between me, the object of worship, themselves, the worshiper. They keep me in a closet. Every now and then they open it for a few minutes and stand there and wave things at me, and then they close it. It's good, but it doesn't do that much for me. There are other aspects of myself who can resonate with that. I do appreciate it on some level, but as far as me, who you're interested in, I see what you want is different altogether. You want me, samsara kupam, they said. What is it, right? Anyway, the gopis responded. They said the same thing in veiled language. They said, "Oh, there are big yogis. They're very intelligent. They're big gyanis. They're very intelligent." Took up that verse. What is that verse? Beautiful verse. The gopis respond, "Oh, and then there's yogis. We're not like that. We're not like the big gyanis, sages, rishi. We're not like the yogis. We're not like big karmis too. We're just like milk ladies, living practically in the jungle, trading milk. That's what we do." They're deprecating paths of jnana, yoga, and karma indirectly. We're less than all this, and we are just village girls. And what we want is samsara kupam. We're in the well of samsara, and we want you with us right here. That's what we want. And he's going, "What the heck? Samsara is nirvana," he says. Yeah, you're right. Bhakti, mama janmani janmanishvare bhuta bhakti haitakite. Where there's bhakti, there is no material world to get out of. There are no problems. There's only opportunities for service that arise. That's all. We're not trying to avoid happiness, or excuse me, acquire happiness or avoid distress, just to serve. That's all. It's otherworldly. It's the most comprehensive way of dealing with the problem of material existence, right? It's like you dug a hole and threw everything in there. You covered it over, built a temple on top, and then the kirtan on top of that. Nothing. By gyan, you can cut it off. Let's say bamboo shoots are given an example in the Bhagavatam. Cover them all up, but it'll grow up again. It'll come up again. If you build a temple on top of it, do kirtan. So bhakti is comprehensive. It's dukama. What is it? Akam duvanti kartsneya iraha ipavaskar. I live outside of San Francisco. A few hours, but we have to come into San Francisco. It's like coming into Vaikuntha from Audarya, across the bridge. And then there's a little island out there the material world, Alcatraz. There's a word, it's not functioning now. It's a tourist, but they used to be right now, but the prisoners are in there and they think this. Meanwhile, San Francisco is going on, restaurants and, whatever, cultural events. And, meanwhile, out in the country, there's out there, a few cows, or milking, taking care of the deity. That's my point anyway. So, when you come into San Francisco in the afternoon, typically in the summer, what did he say, that guy? The coldest winter I ever spent was a summer in San Francisco. Mark Twain, was it Mark Twain? Or W.C. Fields or somebody, I guess it was Mark Twain, he was a traveler. Coldest winter I ever spent was the summer. Because people come, it's California. In the afternoon, the fog rolls in right across the Golden Gate Bridge in the cities. They're all down on the wharf, and all of a sudden it's freezing cold. They got to buy T-shirts and sweatshirts. Big business there. So the point is that when the fog comes in, it's a big fog. So how will you dissipate the fog? Just examples given in the Bhagavatam, 6th canto. Well, you could start a fire, because heat will dissipate the condensation and so forth, but you might burn down the city in the process, right? But if the sun should come out on its own, no one can force it on its own, it will dissipate the fog. Now, this is bhakti. Gyan cannot do, karma cannot do. This is a section of Bhagavatam where Sukadeva is testing Parikshit Maharaj. What did he learn? What's the solution to the predicament? He suggests it could be karma. Then what is the Raj say? No, that's not good. It's like an elephant bathes and then rolls in the sand again. You do some ritual, but you haven't uprooted the problem, the ignorance. Okay, Gyan. We uproot ignorance, but it's like cutting off the bamboo shoots, like I said, they'll come up again. And so he said, Akhandu Dvanti Niraha Iva Vasika, Ke Chit Kevalaya Bhaktya. Vasudeva Paraya. So it's unalloyed bhakti. This is like the sun. It comes up, dissipates the fog of material existence on its own. It's a grace-based avaroha panta, right? It's not an ascending path, it's a descending path. How can the finite know the infinite? It can't. But the infinite is infinite in its capacity, so it can make itself known to the finite if it so desires. That's called a miracle, right? How it can happen? Because he's infinite capacity. So in bhakti, we have effort for grace. So we should make effort, like I was saying earlier, and we want to be concerned that someone of spiritual consequence, likely candidate, our guru, that what I'm doing, that he or she would be pleased to know that, right? That someone of spiritual consequence cares about me. I want to keep that connection. This is everything, right? That's the rope. You can fall in the well, dry well, like I said the other night. You can call out for help, you should, but somebody has to lower the rope, right? And then he'll say, hold on to that rope tight now, and pull you out. When you get to the top, you don't say, well, I sure held that rope good, didn't I? I sure yelled good, didn't I? That will not be your experience. You would say, you saved me. He would say, well, you held the rope, you're pretty good. No, what you will gain, it exponentially outweighs any effort that you could have made. It's grace. So we make effort to get grace. This is Bhakti school. So Sarvadharman Prityaja, he says, give up the worship of Indra, depend on me alone. His mind went to Braj, couldn't speak the Gita anymore. This is the doorway, as I said, to the Bhagavatam, which picks up right where it leaves off. It says, Dharma Projita Kaitaputra, Paramo Nirmat Saranam Satam. This book is not about Dharma, Karma, Artha, even not about moksha. That's varnashram. Dharma, karma, artha, moksha. Don't talk too much about that. You should be a religious boy, but let's not be fanatical here, right? So this is how the typical varnashrami, thinks, right? Moksha, that's we've heard about that. There's some crazy people that do that. They live somewhere and they're not in the world. They're in the woods or in the mountains. We respect them, but we can't understand them. That's for your next life, some other time. It's such a big thing. It's such a rare thing, moksha. And in our school, it's nothing. Moksha lakshan laghanakrit is nothing. Think moksha is rare. Krishna says in the Gita, it's very rare. Manusharam sahasreshu kasyadeta siddhaya. He says same thing in the Bhagavatam. He says a little more clear there. He says muktanam apisiddhanam. But Narayanam Parayana. He says it's very hard to find a mukta. But more rare than that, as Rupa Goswami says in Bhagavatam Sudurlabha, to attain bhava, bhakti proper, but don't be discouraged because you're on the path. Sadhakas. It means it can't be attained by millions of other paths that are out there these days. When I was young, 20 years old, I wanted to know how to meditate. That's what I used to ask. And people didn't have answers. You just meditate. I collected whatever books I could find. It was limited. Now, if you ask, how do you meditate? Oh God, you'll get so many answers. It's such a problem. And they're all wrong. Most of them. First answer is, you can't meditate. You got too many desires in your heart. You can't sit, right? So there's other things you can do that can help you to get you to that point. Anyway, so that's basic, Bhagavad Gita, right? So millions of other paths, and all that you could achieve in all of those paths, put them all together, you won't be able to attain what you could attain in Bhakti Marg. That's what he means, Goswami. He says it's rare. It shouldn't discourage you. Well, it's difficult to get mukti, and it's rare to get bhakti because there's a lot of different ways you could get mukti. There's only one way you can get this, especially what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was speaking about. That means Mahat Kripa. To meet such a, there's a, the river is wide, the river is wide, we can't cross over. Neither have we wings to fly. Give us a boat and a boatman too, and we shall row the other side. Thanks. Folk song. So we need a boat. That's Bhakti Sadhana. We need a boatman. And then we have to row. With his guidance, her guidance, we can go to the other side. Otherwise, it's not possible. We don't have wings to cross. It's wide. Material ocean. How will we cross? And to go to the other side, to live there. So this is he says, Mommy, come, just me in this, on my terms. So to understand this, it's difficult. You can read so many sacred texts and get attracted to this idea, that idea, and then we live in the entrepreneurial, center of the world. Let's improve upon everything, So take a little from the Buddhist text over here, a little from the yoga over there, and come up with a little from quantum mechanics over there. And, well, listen, it worked real good for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, for Rup, Sanatan, modern time, Bhakti Vinod, Prabhupada, so forth and so on. to work for us too. Nothing has changed in the world such that the practice that worked for centuries and centuries and it's given us a long line of siddhas. This is the Ivy League. It's the Ivy League of spirituality. So many graduates from the school and gotten great decorated positions, right? As parshads, members of his entourage. There's all kinds of fly-by-night school, university online and stuff. Where's the results? What kind of the Ivy League has produced so many. This is the Ivy League. It's got good track record. It works. It works. Then solving the question, what's out there, who's asking, what is his prospect, and so forth. Nothing's changed. The world's the same. It's always been in basic sense. So this path, you can go there. It's rarely attained. Means only by this path. Then you're on that path. How fortunate you are now to understand the wealth that you receive the mantra from the Guru. What is that wealth? And everything is there in that mantra. Now you have to spend your wealth. You only be as rich as you spend your wealth. Other you have it. You have to spend it. Right? You have to apply yourself to that. And we apply ourselves with this mood. Let me make effort to get grace. Yasya prasada, bhagavat prasada, yasya prasada nagati. Dayam stuvam, says Trisandhyam. In the morning, in the midday, before the sun goes down, I remember who I am. I'm a sadhaka. But I'm not anymore a bada jiva. I'm not a mukta. I'm a sadhaka. On the path that goes as rare as mukti is, as rare as moksha is, beyond moksha. Panchama purushartha, fifth goal, prem prayojan, not mukti. We can say dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Bhakti! So Krishna teaches in the Gita, don't tell everybody about moksha. They'll be disturbed. It'll bother their minds. But what about bhakti? That you can holler from the treetops, from the mountaintops, with bells and drums. Sing my name, yes, let everybody know. Such is the path, so virtuous, so efficacious, and it's played out, right, beautifully in Srimad Bhagavatam. And when we get to the Govardhan Leela, where we find they're doing Saranagati, they're showing us. This is Leela, so it's a drama. And Krishna's eternal associates who love him only are worshipping Indra. He says, not here, we're not doing that here. We're canceling that out, right? It's that guy who caused me we said earlier that childhood trauma. Because during the Damodar Leela, everyone was out years earlier getting ready for the Indra Yagya. So Yasoda was home alone, right? So she had to put him down because the milk was boiling over, and then she chased him because he was running away. She tied him up, very traumatic experience. Now he's 7 years old. That was that guy that did that. He says, and they're worshiping him. It's been going on for years. Hey, Dad, what's this all about? Why are you doing this? Is this scripturally based? Since the young boy is now Poganda, he's come out as child, he's in boy, and he's speaking Sankhya philosophy, Karma Mimamsa, and he's doing it in such a way that, look carefully, he's actually speaking about bhakti, virtues of bhakti, bhakti to himself alone. And so his father's just charmed by this. My son is so religious and learned. So worship the mountain, right? Put everything that was gathered for Indra's worship and worship the mountain. This is not animism. This is Ananya Bhakti. And he showed that I am the mountain. He's standing here, and he is the mountain. What to make of that? And the rains came. and he lifted the mountain, right? So he protected them, showed he's the protector. And how serious was it? Oh, it said, to make this emphasize the point about themselves, it was like the rains at the time of the Noah's Ark, the deluge, the devastation, the end of the universe. Life comes from water, and life will take it away, but water will take it away. In a sense. That kind of rain. It's that emphasis has been given, and the boy is lifting the mountain, which is like an umbrella, right? Which is a sign of royalty. It's saying he's not just a boy. The Aishwarya is coming out in the midst of all the Madhurya, right? Mm-hmm. The Aishwarya. That means it looks like it's showing. Oh, he's a king. Actually, he's royal. We should not think that. Oh, and they do. How can he be God? He's a cowherd. We don't know what that means exactly, but the cowherds are not exactly the most, exalted caste in the Varnashram system. They don't read, they don't write, they milk cows, they do, important things, truly, but it's missed by the educated people often. No, we should not think like that. Baladev quotes in his commentary on Bhagavad Bhagavatamrita, Go Sutra, yeah. And then, the cows, all the gods are in the cows. The cows are the Vedas, Vedas personified, so on and so forth. What are the cows? Cows personified giving. For a little grass, which grows practically anywhere, even between the cracks of the concrete, it's growing. For that, what is the value of grass, to us? But from that miracle of milk is coming, right? And to have milk, you need a bowl too. And he lend himself to domestication and till the field, right? This is a bargain. You come out of the wild, we'll protect you. And make sure you have food, medication, you work for us, we give you medical insurance and welfare check, food stamps, the whole thing. What do you think? We don't need a rope to capture them. We offer them a welfare plan. We got food stamps, we got all medical bills covered, everything. And we'll also scratch your neck, right? Brush you down, take care of you. Sometimes we'll sleep with you because you're warm. We'll bring you in the house and you'll be our heater. It's true. This is the cowherd life. And the cows agree, give them milk, bull tills the field. This is the beginning of civilization. Now, he was hunting, he was gathering. Now he's doing agriculture. Because there's a meeting between human and animal, right? Domestication of things. So the cow is the most useful of the domesticated animals. We make a bargain with the cows. We love you, you love us. How's that sound? You never have to look over your shoulder. Is anyone coming? We need to talk to the vegans about this. It's a good thing to take care of cows and to take their milk also. They want to give the milk. Don't stop them. They want to give that to us. Why they produce more than the calf can drink. Right? So the cows are central to the Govardhan Lila, Govardhan, right? The hill that nourishes the cows and the cowherd people. And Krishna showed, I am the hill and I am the worshiper of the hill at the same time. Right? Rains came, he protected them. And the Indrajagya was never performed again in Braj, right? This is Saranagati. So that's why we've been talking about Saranagati in relation to the Govardhan Leela. It's very instructive. The Prakat Leelas, Prakat means the manifest Leela, the visible Leela, but it also means the best. Prakat means the best. What's the best? From our vantage point, it's best. Because this is a trailer of the apricot Leela, telling us what the possibilities are. And it has some extra features. It's filmed on location in human society. This is a particular apricot Leela, Govardhan Hill. It's not in the apricot. That's why those in the apricot want to take birth again in the apricot Leela. They know it's the best too. Right? We think of it as a portal. We'll go there, and it's true, so that we can go to the apricot. And you get to the apricot, then I like to go back to the apricot, and he goes there. So it's a very, very beautiful Leela, Govardhan Leela, very important to us. Many lessons to be learned, many deeper rasic understandings can be derived, but this is a very practical understanding for sadhakas. And as we heard the other night, we were speaking about Prabhupada on his Tirubhav, his appearance day, and drawing from his prayer on the Jaladuta. First half is about Sharanagati. Second half is about Bhava. The first half is about cultivating surrender and submission, faith. And the second half about longing. So this is the difference between sadhana bhakti and bhava bhakti. Submission, surrender, and longing. So when you get the stage, the dramatic stage of Sharanagati in place in your heart, then you can say, the drama of Krishna Lila is coming to a theater near me very soon in my heart. It will be performed there on that stage, on the dramatic stage for Saranagati. Saranagati ki jai. Shri Govardhan Leela ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Or Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Oh, Premanandi. What's the time? 7:20. Okay, so completely different than what I planned to talk about, but thank you. Thank you. Drew that out, and I learned something from it too. So this is my last night here. Tomorrow I will be here in the morning. Not here, but nearby, right? I'll be at Subal and Manandra's house. We have a Zoom call there with the rest of our friends, congregation, answer questions. Any question tonight? Yes, what's your name?
My name is Vinod.
Vinod Kovida? Yes. Who is your guru?
So is
Devamrita Swami. Ki jai. Yes.
Maharaj, I was wondering if you could elaborate a little more on how you mentioned that we allow Varnashram to dictate, or if we think we can advance in bhakti, then we're allowing karma to cover. Because it really seems that those who are not situated well in Varnashram find it difficult to focus on Krishna. So, and I can say it from my own experience.
What do you mean by Varnashram?
Being situated in an ashram,
Like a grihastha or brahmachari. Well, these are just very basic things that are not exclusive to Varnashram. Varnashram, when I speak about it, this is a path. This is an entire path that's rejected by Mahaprabhu in terms of its capacity to constitute, in terms of its constituting the entirety of what spiritual life is about. So Varnashram cannot give you the full meal, right? So on that basis, he rejects it. On another basis, he may accept it because it helps people on a certain level, or that's the level of their eligibility. So they're Varnashramis, right? But there's at the same time some overlapping, some just basic overlapping. Therefore, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments, for example, in Bhagavatam in relation to this issue. Oh, but basic sense of hygiene and ashram sensibility. What it means, what makes one eligible to be a renunciate as compared to householder. Well, this applies within bhakti also. So there's some overlapping, right? But all the thousands of rules of Varnashram, which you don't even know, 10 of them, right? The thousands of them. What to do, how to stand, which way to face when passing here, and at what time of day. And this is the Varnashram. It's a very comprehensive path for expressing gratitude for the bounty of nature. And if you do it really well, that means Dharma Jignasu, inquiring into Dharma, and you follow all the scriptural injunctions, you'll find that it really works for what it's meant to do. And so the real fruit of it will be that you develop faith in the scripture. So then you look a little deeper and you find out you're not even a human. You've been working to improve your human life, to get better kids, better job, better go to heaven, but you're not a human, you're an Atman. So then Brahma Jignasu, right? You inquire into Brahman. Now, in that inquiry, with that inquiry and pursuing the path of Gyan, Varnashram is now it's transcended, right? You're beyond the Varnashram. So, of course, then beyond that is you could say Rasa Jignasu. Now, Ramanuja Sampradaya, that would be the course. Inquire about Dharma when you're done. Inquire about Brahman when you're done. Then you can do bhakti. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, by sadhu sangha, you can do bhakti now. Because it only requires the requisite faith. That's the generosity of bhakti. Now, when we do bhakti now, we should look for the results through bhakti that we would get within Varnashram and more. We shouldn't look, now I'm doing bhakti, where's the rasa? That's coming, but the other things that have to get out of the way, right? So cleansing the heart is part of bhakti, right? Cleansing the heart is not really part of Varnashram, but if we move a little bit beyond Varnashram, the karma marg, to Nishkam karma. Nishkam karma means you do all the duties of Varnashram, but you practice not being attached to the result. You just do them because they're supposed to be done, without being attached to the result. I do it because I want to get a son. I want to get a daughter. I want to do that. There's all kind of wants that we have, and there are ways to God, worship this God for that, for health, worship the sun God for, and so on and so forth, right? There's millions of gods, because there's millions of desires, right? And in order to fulfill those desires, we're dependent upon the macrocosm, nature. And so we petition the nature, we show gratitude. This is Varnashram. It's a beautiful thing. But if we do it really nicely, and we love nature in this way, at least by showing our gratitude, then it said if you love someone, they'll tell you all their secrets. Nature will tell you a secret, that I've got a soul, and it's you, and him. Oh, so now I can come to Gyan. And from Gyan, of course, in Ramanuja Sampradaya, then you become qualified for bhakti. But as I say, in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, the generosity of bhakti is stressed, as well as its post-liberated, exalted, high status. And we can take up bhakti through sadhusanga. But when we take up bhakti through sadhusanga, then we should start to see the kind of results in us that we see in Arjuna at the end of the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, what kind of person he is. Krishna is now starting directly and to speak about himself, right? In another 6 chapters, the middle of the Gita. All about him. Why is Krishna talking about himself? People think a little egotistic. The first 6 chapters are kind of interesting, but all of a sudden this guy's like, I'm everything. Everything rests on me like pearls. But Krishna's not talking about himself. He's talking about bhakti. But in order to talk about bhakti, he has to talk about the object of bhakti. It just happens to be him. So properly understood, he's talking about bhakti, which is a very beautiful thing, right? Service. He can't help it that he's the stomach of the body. where all the food should be given, by which it's distributed mystically everywhere else, right? It's not his fault that he distributes it everywhere, right? So anyway, so if you look at our June and you see at the end of the 6th chapter, all it means, what kind of person he is, to be really a bhakta. What's so in as I said earlier, also this is our moral compass. If it's favorable for bhakti, I'll do it. If it's not, I won't do it. You know how morally sound you'll be if you follow that? Varnashram will be worshiping you. What kind of person is this? So it's all built in there, right? We don't need Varnashram to help us become a better person. That's one thing. Of course, yeah. Are we going to be a renunciate, or are we going to be a householder? Well, grihe tako bane tako. Sada hari bole tako. Grihe tako. If you tako in a house, you live. It means if you live in a house or you live in the forest, grihe tako bane tako. Sada hari bole tako. Just do Harinam, right? That's Bhakti Vinod. So the method is the same for household or for renunciate, and 99.9999% of the people will be householders. So the problem is pretty much solved. If you ask, do you think I should be a householder or a monk? You got the question. The answer is right there. If you're asking, be a householder. If the question just doesn't come up and you just can't identify, well, then you're that kind of person. And that's just another kind of psychology, right? And you have to give up yourself as much in the ashram as you do in the household to be successful. Giving has to be there. So Sada Hari Bole Dako, so chant the holy name. But I mean, so it's certain basic aspects of Varnashram, it overflows into bhakti. It's a whole integrated, system. But all of the rules of Varnashram, let's say, for example, Sri Dharma. Sri Dharma, according to Varnashram, what a woman should do and so forth. Well, if we think, well, she's a woman and Sri Dharma says this, therefore, her place, let's give an example. Well, according to Sri Dharma, within the Varnashram system, a woman's place is in the home. Now, you have to, of course, think we live in a different culture and time and facilities, and a woman should be protected at all times. You think, what the heck are they talking about? I can take care of myself. Why you say that? Because you got an education, for God's sake. And you're protected. There's different ways to protect people, right? Who are they going to be protected from? Men. Right? So if you get an education, then you can start to take care of yourself. So, I mean, you have to understand it in a dynamic way. In an agrarian culture where the women weren't educated, because half the men, at least, weren't either. None of the cowherd men. I mean, they weren't even, they weren't printing presses, but to speak of an internet, right? People didn't read. And so it's actually quite beautiful, the system. That you have to be careful that you don't, take from times hundreds of years ago and dismiss it altogether because it doesn't apply now. Like, let's take Abraham Lincoln. Okay, what did he do? He freed the slaves. Right? Of course, he said they could never hold office, of course. Do we say that? Do we underscore that? No, I mean, there's a reason why he thought like that. The world is always showing itself more and more what it is. We don't know everything about the world, and we never will. There's always more secrets of the world, the natural world. And if people want to be fascinated with it, keep examining it, they can forever. Or they can see it's not what it appears to be. It's constantly changing, right? So we can find out things, and people change. People change. We are different. We are wired different. So anyway, It's a different time, different culture. But let's say in Sri Dharma, it's just I don't want you to, vilify Sri Dharma. It had its place and it was useful. And you look for the pragmatic result. What was the result? What was happening? The whole culture was in pursuit of transcendence, and who would care? But does it matter what the role is if you're getting the goal? Whatever. I'm going to be the cleaner, or if I'm going to be the cook, or I'm going to be the book distributor, and it really doesn't matter, right? This is the service I've got, and if it can take me there, I'm going. If I go on a train or a plane or walk, but I'm going to get there. Everything's good, right? So, Sri Dharma. Let's give an example. Within Varnashram, it means how women can't be teachers, gurus, right? Let's say. So, if we say, therefore, women can't be gurus, we'll then go to Vaishnavism, because Sri Dharma says they can't. What we're doing there is that we are now compromising the efficacy of bhakti by imposing upon it, rules from another system. So we're, and of course, to do archan. Well, only the Brahmins can do archan within Varnashram, but within bhakti, anybody can do. What does it say? Sadkarma nipano vipra mantra tantra visharda. Avaishnavo guruna sat vaishnava svapacho guru. It says, if you have all the 6 qualities of a Brahmin, but you're not a Vaishnava, you cannot be guru. But if you're a woman, you can become a guru. That's what it says. Swapacho. It doesn't matter. It's the same thing. Understand? Whatever your birth is, that's what it's saying. But you're a Vaishnava, you can be a guru. Not that you can't. You are a guru in some capacity. And of course, it could go to full capacity. So we can't, they say, I've heard it said, well, women, they get initiated, they don't get the thread. So how could they be gurus? You think that that's how, you think the thread makes you a guru or quality? For hundreds and hundreds of years, when Gaudiya Vaishnavas, who had received the sacred thread, boys, Upanayana during the Varnashram ceremony, it's like the confirmation in Catholicism at 12, you pick a saint, St. Francis will be my patron saint, and so forth, whatever it is. So this is the same thing. So they get the Brahma Gayatri and the thread, the boy gets, and so forth. But if they became initiated in Gaudiya Vaishnava, they would take off the thread. Because they said, now we're meeting the Vaishnava. Now Bhaktisiddhanta added the thread on for the same reason that they took it off. Because he wanted to preach to people in Varnashram who thought that the Gaudiyas had no caste and therefore they weren't qualified to worship the deity. So he put the thread on and said, actually, they're more than Brahmins. And when people saw, they got threads, I guess it's okay. And then it was part of his strategy, but it's a relative thing. So that's what I'm talking about. But now, if you don't, the teaching is if you do not have the faith in the efficacy of bhakti, well, then you can't tread the path, and then you're subject to the path of Varnashram. If there's a Varnashram system in place, and that's the problem, there is no Varnashram. And Prabhupada said it himself in a number of places, much as he said, we should establish the Varnashram. Because he had this idea, we're going to take over the world. Why not? and so he said that, people should come under Varnashram, that this would be the best way, and so, but, a number of times he said, in speaking and writing, and even in his books, he said, but it's Kali Yuga, it's impossible. Now you think about it. You want to go out and tell somebody, we'd like you to join our mission. Can you tell me about your father? What kind of work does he do? Okay, father's a doctor. Okay, and what does your mother do? She's okay. So, all right. Well, you're a Brahmin. Let's say. Okay. Okay. Now here are your duties. I want or you say, chant Hare Krishna. It's real nice, offer your food to Krishna. I mean, it's a little easier, the latter, right? This is generosity of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. All the people of Saptagram, they were all merchants, and they were disenfranchised from the Varnashram system by Balal Sain. And the Dinanda Prabhu came in and replaced all the rituals of Varnashram that they had been excluded from, being ostracized from the Varnashram community, with one ritual, Nam Sankirtan. And there was no distinction between caste or gender who could participate. Liberated them all, right? Just big dispensation of the Dinanda Prabhu in Saptagram, the whole community, Sakiras devotees spawned by the Dinanda Prabhu. This is what Gaudiya Vaishnavism is about. But we have great respect to Varnashram, but it's not possible to reestablish. You talk about Daiva Varnashram. This is a term that Bhakti Vinod used. What he meant by that, in one sense, is a system of Varnashram that understands its place in the whole scheme of things, and therefore has deference for the Bhakti marg. Instead of the kind of Varnashram that was going on at the time in West Bengal, where members of the Varnashram and the smart Brahmin community tried to assassinate Bhakti Siddhanta. Because he was saying, Bhakti transcends Varnashram. And I'm letting people from Germany offer artik to the deity, for example. So we respect the system, but it's now even in India, you can find somebody who's a Brahmin. He tells he's a Brahmin. Ask him what kind of work he does. As soon as he tells you somebody you're not a Brahmin, Brahmins don't do that. They don't work for anybody else. A Brahmin cannot be employed by anyone else and be a Brahmin. Good luck. So it's Kali Yuga. And the Dharma is Nam Sankirtan. Now there's some aspects of Varnashram, hygiene, sensibilities, and determining eligibility for renounced life or household life, which is pretty easy. We went through that. But some people think, well, you need Varnashram to help you become a better devotee. Well, that means that you think that by Varnashram your bhakti will be enhanced, but your bhakti will only be enhanced by bhakti. Bhaktya sanjataya bhaktya. Only bhakti can give bhakti. Varnashram, which is the karma marg governed by Rajaguna, how can it give bhakti? The only way that Varnashram can give bhakti is that within the Varnashram system, all the gods and goddesses are worshipped, right? Depending on your desires, right? And within all of that, Vishnu is also worshipped. So if you happen to worship Vishnu, you did a little bhakti. That way, through Varnashram, you could arguably get some eligibility for bhakti because you did bhakti. And bhakti gives bhakti. If Varnashram could give bhakti, then Varnashram would be above bhakti, but it's not. Only bhakti can give bhakti. Does that help? Go ahead.
Yeah, so if I'm understanding this, basically like we, as practicing devotees, we try to apply Varnashram to whatever extent we can without, over endeavoring, but realizing that if there's some aspects missing, like say if someone is trying to get married but it's not working, you might think, until I can get married, like I'm just not going to be able to practice very well. But the point you're making is that that's not the case. We can always practice bhakti.
Yeah, you could practice bhakti in any situation, but yeah, of course, if the guru is going to, say, okay, you'd like to be initiated, so your faith has been aroused. Okay, do you have a job? Yeah, I got a job, and I just graduated from college. And now I'm an engineer. Okay, he thinks, good. Got that, major issue of life settled. What about relationships? Well, I met this girl and, we're engaged. And okay, sounds good. Next guy says, a job? No, I was thinking of, joining the ashram. Well, maybe you better get a job, we could try it, but, the likelihood is you're probably going to need a job. Anyway, the point is, if you got a job, you got your economic issue has been solved, your relationships issue has been solved. Okay, it's going to be easier sailing than if that's not solved and you're going to tread the path of bhakti, because your mind is too, looking for the partner, trying to make ends meet, whatever. Still, you can do it, bhakti, but when those things are in place, materially, that's, and you're speaking in a broad sense. If you, about Varnashram, sense, what is Varnashram about, essentially? Okay, Varnashram is about balance. It's about psychological balance. You have a physio-psychological reality, and you want them to be in balance. In times gone by, even in the United States, even when I was a kid, most children, boys would, by far a majority compared to today, would do the same thing that their father did. Work in the business. And, of course, I was born in 1949, and by the time, that kind of thing came about, my father was expecting me to follow that. I was in California, San Francisco. So it was a whole cultural revolution, and things changed. But prior to that, in the 50s, you wanted to marry a girl, you had to go meet the father, and all those kind of sensibilities. They're not just relative to India in the past; they were all over the world, right? What was the point? So.
Psychophysical nature.
So yeah. So the Varnashram, we have a psychophysiological nature, and you want to bring these things together, right? So sort of for balance. So in times gone by, it was kind of defined. You're a son of so and so, and this is what you're going to do. To a much larger extent than today, what you were going to do and be materially was figured out a long time before you ever reached puberty. Right? And in the Indian system, even, the marriage was arranged. And it's not relative only to India. It was going on in a less defined way without astrological calculation and so forth. Every mother on the block think, talk on the phone. There used to be like, get on the phone, and there's a whole bunch of people on there talking. It's a party line, they call it. You didn't have private lines. And then so the ladies were talking about, my son, your daughter, it's fairly common. Doesn't matter what culture, all parents want the same thing for their kids. They're just different ways to come get about it, go about it. They want their kids to marry, be happy, and give them grandchildren. So ancient India, had a system. It has its virtues and so forth. Modern system is different, hope you're happy, find your way, try a few times, hopefully one of them will work, we want the same thing, and it's, but anyway, in the past, your life was defined. And so there's a virtue to that, right? Because you didn't have to think about it. You didn't have to reinvent yourself every 10 years, now, 50 is the new 20, you think it's cool, but it's like, you should have figured that out a long time ago, who you are and what you are, for God's sake. But because we just, it's thought, the more freedoms you have, the more we can manipulate material nature and find newer ways to, do things, and the more opportunities we present you with. It's such a folly, because if you want to buy anything, God, what a problem. You go on the internet, I want to buy, a heater, okay. There's 10,000 of them on Amazon, all different price, and you got to figure out everything, you read the reviews, and, it's just like a nightmare. I just want to heat that house. For God's sake. plug it in or whatever. So all these, opportunities, just making it, this thought, making life easier. It's not, and it's sort of just obscuring what the purpose is. There a purpose to life? Is there a meaning to life? And then the propaganda, there is no meaning, there is no purpose. Make your own purpose. That's what it is. So, but in times gone by, in all cultures, there was a more sense of that life here is, has meaning in terms of the hereafter, and so the material situation was worked out for people largely, to a much greater extent than today. But now today, it's not worked out that well. The family unit is, where do your parents live? There you go. Here you are. You're living here. So it's not a bad thing, but it's just the way the world is. People aren't standing on the same place, and they have opportunity to see the world. So I went to California. From the Midwest. As soon as I was able to go. So yeah, it's problematic, but there's a virtue to it too. There's a virtue to it. The virtue is that young people, let us say, they're open-minded and but risk-taking and so forth. So they could just latch on to Gaudiya Vaishnavism in the way that, for example, someone in the past go, oh, that's too serious. I don't know. They understand more what it is, what it involves, but what does Narad say? Narada Muni. Taktva swadharmam sharanam bhujam hare. He said, go for it. Go for it. Narada Muni, as Daksha, had 100 sons, right? So he thought, all right, the right thing to do is take my sons and let them get initiated by a sage and get that out of the way. Get that covered, right? And they can move on with their lives. So he took them to Nard. Nard told him, hey, look, why don't you just become renunciates? Make life easy. So they all became renunciates, and Daksha was just fuming. How could he do? What kind of sage is this? These boys they didn't have adhikar for this. This is just going to become a disturbance in the society. Okay, but he's a sage. I'm supposed to respect him. That's the system. Okay, he begot 100 more sons. Gave them the Narad Muni. There were these sons. Please train them, in religious values. Narad did the same thing. Flipped out. Daksha flipped out. Cursed Narada Muni. You could never stay in one place for more than 3 days. So it was the curse, right? It's the whole story. So Narad says in the Bhagavatam, he basically says, if you get some inclination for it, go for it. But what if along the way you fall down? He says, there is no falling from bhakti. Whatever you gained, that's eternal, because it's governed by the nirguna. Whatever you gained, if you gave up the path of bhakti, you still didn't lose what you gained, and what you gained was more than what you could get from millions of lifetimes and zillions of lifetimes of perfect execution of varnashram. This is Narad, it's so heavy, right? So he speaks to this. There's a kind of a risk on appetite, amongst youths. In my time, it was like, who cares if we got a washer or a dryer, Mom? What does that mean to me? I'm not happy. That is happiness. Well, I used to have to wait in the soup lines with your grandmother, in the 1930s. We got a washer and a dryer. And now there's going to be a color TV pretty soon. It's going to have colors on it, for God's sake. We got everything. We won the war. We got everything. And you're not happy? No. What are you going to do? I don't know. I'm going. I'm going to look for it. I'm going to find it somewhere in a pipe, or I don't know where, or something, California. Who knows? But
but you're a Catholic boy. We sent you to Catholic high school. I said, yeah, but those priests, man, they were bad. Bad examples. I lost a taste for it, you know. But I met Prabhupada. Oh, and I became so straight then. So that, you know, there's a value for that. It's both sides, right? You know? So, yeah. So the point anyway is that Varnashram is about, in essence, it's about having psychological balance. That's what it's about. So there may be different ways that we can go about that, right? Where the system's not in place, but we should look at the essence. That means to say, if we want to build a skyscraper that reaches up and touches the stars, well, we need a horizontal foundation to do that. That's the idea. So we should try to see that we have a horizontal foundation such that it will serve the purpose of vertical growth, and it will be clear that its purpose is nothing other than that. It has no purpose unto itself, only to the extent that it will help facilitate me in my spiritual growth. I'll make that endeavor, and then it will spiritualize that actual activity. I'm going to marry because then I can get that off my mind, and then I can put Krishna on my mind, and she'll help me because she'll try to put Krishna on her mind too, something like that, right? So you have to look at it like that. You have to extend the whole idea of bhakti. Then becomes the house becomes the ashram. I need to have a kid because I just do, and so I got one now that can help me do bhakti because I needed that. Now it's done. Now it's not easier said than done to do what I'm talking about here. It's don't just think, good, I'm going to have a kid. That's bhakti, you know, great. You know, I have 2 kids, 5, you know. No, I'm talking about something very high here. You know, Bhakti Vinod had 14, whatever it was, 12 children, right? True. So, but you have to, you know, don't think just having children there. Guru said just having children, that's bhakti. It's easy, you know, you just have children. No, those are something that most people need, and it's good, and it can serve to help us. But what are we really doing? What's it all for? We have to make that direct effort for hearing, chanting, cultivating bhakti. So, yeah. In essence, Varnashram is about balance. So, we don't have the system, and we'll have to find other ways to bring about that balance. Sure, you know, you can chant Hare Krishna and solve all the problems, but you can't just chant Hare Krishna, so because the problems are irritating you too much. So, you know, solve it relatively over here. Take an aspirin, you know, okay, get rid of your headache, get chant Hare Krishna, you know, something like that. So help. Yeah, that's an interesting topic. For sure. Yes.
So the other day, when you were speaking about the Govardhan Lila, you said that the Aishwarya that came from when Krishna lifted Govardhan Hill was resolved by referring to his astrology, that something that God was going to work miracles through him, right? I don't know what it said exactly.
You're asking what was said?
No, but I'm just thinking now you mentioned that Krishna is also showing himself as Govardhan Hill. How is that Aishwarya resolved amongst the villagers?
Well, they thought that Narayan did something wonderful through him. Same thing. That's what Nanda Maharaj, who was in the cow shed where Gargacharya did the name giving and said that, you know, Narayan will do wonderful things through your son. That's the way he interpreted it, Nanda Maharaj. So he shared that with the cowherd elders and said, it's not, Krishna is just my son. I mean, that's obvious, right? You know, he's misbehaved. He can't be God. I mean, it's obvious he's not God. That's one thing. Now, he did something here that might make us think he is a God or God of gods, you know, but Gargacharya said, Narayan will do wonderful things to our son. Therefore, we should protect our son. This is the crazy logic of Braj. Yeah, right? He's just our son. But Narayan will do wonderful things through him, which would mean he doesn't need any protection, right? But therefore we should protect him because Narayan will do wonderful things through him. The whole thing reverses around. No matter what he does, the nature and the measure of the praying there can never be contracted in the face of a display of his Aishvarya and his godhood. It only causes that praying to grow. That's different than, for example, Arjun's praying, which was like Sakyaras in the city, when he showed the Aishvarya on Bhagavad Gita, his praying, Sakya praying contracted. This won't happen to the Brajvasis. If he shows Aishvarya, and there's nowhere he shows more Aishvarya than in Braj. The Brahma Vimohan Leela is the example.
It's a follow-up to that.
Go ahead, follow up, yeah.
Follow-up, I was wondering, is the opposite true too? Let's say an Aishvarya Bhakta, it's a huge dose of intimacy. Does that only increase their Aishvarya?
No, it's not like
I don't
that.
know.
Therefore, in Vaikuntha, they don't believe there's a Goloka. God could not be like that. It can't be. Narayan may sport like that sometimes, but it's not something we can participate in. He makes people and he does this stuff, but there's no place called Goloka where this can take place. People can do that. That's the whole purpose of the Krishna's two Bhagavan Swayam, right? You understand? If we can establish that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then there has to be a place where he resides, where those types of intimate dealings can take place. It's one aspect, important aspect of Krishna's two Bhagavan. That's why we emphasize that. Because if he's not the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then he is only an expression of Narayan in Vaikuntha. And in Vaikuntha, you cannot relate with God as a Sakha, as a Gopi. On Janmashtami, in Vaikuntha, Narayan will show the Krishna Leela. Gopakumar saw it when he came to Vaikuntha. But it couldn't captivate him in the way that the Braj Leela in Goloka was his destiny and could captivate him, because it was only Narayan showing this as but in a way that nobody in Vaikuntha could participate in it. Oh, Narayan shows that, charming, but you can't relate with Narayan like that. He's God. But if we say that Krishna is the fountainhead even of Narayan, then he must have his own abode. Right? And then there, you can be his friend, you can be his lover, you can be his parent, right? So therefore, it said, well, they don't know about the Lok in Vaikuntha. That will interfere with their Aishvarya. Is that what you were asking? It's a reverse in that sense.
Yeah.
If they know about the intimacy, it will negatively affect their Aishvarya. Well, it actually won't contract, but it will, it just doesn't, there's no place for it. It doesn't compute, exactly. You can't relate with God like that. Yes.
Thank you very much. Sometimes when we don't
I mean, I
understand,
was once in South India in a Sanskrit school, and the head professor there, Brahmin, brought us for lunch, and we were taking it was from the Sri Sampradaya, very Pukka Bhakta of Narayan in his house, serving up, and we were engaging in Krishna Katha, and he was very happy. So my Godbrother said to him, Guru, whenever we speak about Krishna, you become very jolly. He said, oh, yes, very nice. And then he said, but if we talk about Narayan, and before you could get all syllables of Narayan out, that Brahma went, that is another thing. I was like, oh my God, this man from Vaikuntha, that is another thing. You just went in like a trance of reverence and so forth. It was very inspiring to see. So yeah, Narayan can do that. That's what Narayan. How we actually relate to God, that's another thing. Personally, ourselves, we are all dasas. There you go.
Whenever we don't understand what the guru, why the guru is doing what they're doing, we always look to see what the guru is doing for some example, some insight, some inspiration. But then the guru goes and does something that totally surprises us. Totally, we can't understand it. May even make us feel out of place. We hear sometimes just, oh, it's Leela, it's Leela. But if it hurts, if it somehow doesn't conform with something that we expected to feel, that's all the good stuff, is that a good enough explanation? How do we deal with the fact that trying to know often pulls our heart out of the equation?
And then you don't try to know. Not everything needs to be known. Of course, it's a broad topic. There's a whole gradation. It goes out and smokes cigarettes and takes LSD every Saturday night or something like that. You might start to wonder for good reason. Because the guru, is like the father in the sense, classic sense, in the scriptures like the mother. So they never get divorced. So guru and shastra, they go together. So guru's business is to represent the teaching in the shastra through accurate teaching of what it says and to exemplify it. Now, he or she has their own personality, of course, as well. That's the relative. See, the relative side of there's a relative side of the guru, and there's the absolute side, right? Right. The absolute side means he's representing Bhagawan, the teaching, exemplifying that. The relative side is that he or she is a Vaishnava, an individual Vaishnava, who may have a different disposition than another Vaishnava. But the relative side of the guru, try to understand me, is a Vaishnava. What are you? You understand? You were hoping to be a Vaishnava. You were, a Prakrita Bhakta, a Kanishthadikari, means that this is a very generous term. But we want to be a Vaishnava. This is one of the types of cheating. According to Jiva Goswami in his commentary on the Narpita Charim Charat verse of Chaitanya Charitamrita, Rupa Goswami's verse from Vidagdamadava. Anarpita Charim Charat Karunayavati no Kayo. One of the things he says there in his commentary is there's, of course, the benediction, the verse talking about the benediction of Mahaprabhu, and in comparison to that, well, Dharma, Karma, Artha, Moksha, it's all cheating. Dharma, Projita, Kaita, Botra, give it all. And he says, another kind of cheating is to think that I'm a devotee, but I haven't attained prema. Claim myself to be a devotee. So the absolute relative side of the guru is a Vaishnava. That's also worshipable for us. The relative side. It's not something we could say, oh, he's very high, but I don't like his relative side. So let me call him out on that. And I mean, yeah, okay, look at the relative side of Gorkashore Das Babaji. It scare a lot of people away, right? But you want to get as close as you can to Gorkashore Das Babaji, if you understand what his inner reality is, and you want to figure out how can I approach him how I could get that. And Keshav Maharaj did that. Bhakti Pragya and Keshav Maharaj. He was locked in the bathroom, locked himself in the bathroom somewhere, chanting. Wouldn't let anybody in for days. Keshav Maharaj was able to get him out, you know, give him prashadam. And I don't know the whole story, I forget, but part of it was he identified himself as the Shishya of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Then he started to listen to him. So he was an avadut in the full sense of the term, right? That's an extreme example, but you know, I mean, every Vaishnava is going to have his or her disposition, but that disposition, every jiva, every cowherd boy, every gopi has a different disposition, different likes and dislikes. Some like mangoes, some like bananas. Right? What is the Siddhadeha? That is an extension of Krishna's own body. That you are one with. More senses he has, through which he tastes and experiences. You are as much one with God as you are different. We emphasize the difference, but sometimes it's important to understand as much one with God. Now think about that. So who's to complain? There's nobody to argue with. There's only God. That's all there is. We're supposed to learn that. How about that? So this is a whole different world we're going to, a whole different worldly perspective. So you have to kind of separate yourself a little bit from so many sensibilities that may be appropriate in other circumstances and how to deal with people. The guru-disciple relationship, if the guru is bona fide, it cannot be abusive. Even if he abuses you, it cannot be abusive. Because what that's coming from, where it's coming from in your heart, it's about, that is it, that's in your interest. So the relative side, we should take that seriously, right? And you know, I mean, that's going to be part of what we're attracted to too, because we can't see the whole picture. So generally, we connect with the guru whose relative side is kind of like-minded with ours. You know, it resonates. He says things, she says things that sound like, yeah, I feel like that. I feel like that too. You know, that makes sense to me. I wish I said that. I could have said that. I mean, maybe, but he's saying it for me. So all about it, you know, make it easier. So we resonate with that. So we connect. But gurus like the fire. So we're told. So you can't get too close, but you can't get too far. You won't be able to cook. There'll be no light. You get too close, you might get burned. So not everybody can be as close as others. So it's important to try to, the guru help us figure that out. Some people need to be at a distance. Some people need to be closer. If those who are closer, will they be at an advantage? Yeah, they will. That's not fair. Yeah. Well, we're not looking for justice here. That's not what we're not in line for justice. We're in line for grace. If we're in line for mercy and somebody gets called in front of us, we say, wait a minute, that's not fair. Go to the back of the line. You're in the wrong line here. This is the line for mercy. What God wants to do, he does. We signed on for that, right? And we know if we understand the philosophy, we know it's good for me. It's good for me. What other lesson I leave? And humility goes just a long way. It can move mountains. The disciple has this power, you see. You have this power over the guru. This is your power. If you want to challenge the guru, and you be humble. You think, oh, what's your case here? You know.
Karpanye, the other part. Karpanye.
Karpanye, yeah. It's one of the angas of Saranagati. Dainya, humility. This is the power that you have. If you exercise the power of humility, then you can move the mountain of the guru. Get his consideration on all, on all levels. So yeah, I mean, you have to understand, you have to separate what we're doing from all types of worldly sensibilities and how it works in that realm at the job and what how people should be or shouldn't be and so on. And so this is a whole different world where this is like a satellite of that, sadhu sangha. It has a whole different
set of decorum rules and so forth. And you know, it's very beautiful at the same time. It's very very affectionate and insightful. So, yes.
The gold creek flavor, what does that look like for households?
Yeah, so he's asking that how did Krishna's my maintainer, how does that look for householders? Well, it's obviously you have to have some means of livelihood. So many of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's associates were householders, majority of them. They had some livelihood. Kodaveka Sridhar used to sell banana leaf cups, right? And 50% of his income was given to worship the Ganges. That's what he did, how he lived, right? So, excuse me, because your sister situation is different, how your Sharanagati will play out will be different. It won't play out like a monk. What is go for Dvaivanam, Krishna's maintaining me. They have to play out in the context of your household life. So Prabhupada's idea about that was that his householders would spend 50% of their income for Gaudiya Vaishnavism. That was Prabhupada's idea. Then you can be Gokritve Varanam Tata. One of my godbrothers, after Prabhupada's departure, for a while in ISKCON, he came up with a formula where he said, well, actually, you know, after taxes and everything, if you look at the basic income of the household, then 10%, I think he said 10% after taxes. He had this whole thing worked out to 50% equivalent of the whole thing. So that was his formula. So yeah, there's taxation. And this is a good thing. And then, you know, you have, what do they call it? Expendable income, disposable income. Well, throw it at the deities, right? Spend it on Vaishnavism. It means that your happiness in life is the bhakti, service of the mission. If there's a mission, you know, a lot of gurus don't have a mission. Lucky, you know, and they are in a lot of ways. There's, you know, there, some people come get initiated, and you know, whatever happens, you know, I mean, they're not dealing with the whole mission thing. Group dynamics and stuff. Both first Bhaktisiddhanta started that. You know, thank you, Bhaktisiddhanta. So and as it's the institution, you know, he himself did weigh in on the downside of institutions also himself, but he was really one of probably the first person to really institutionalize, you know, in a formal way, in a hard way, softly being institutionalized in the ecstasy of Mahaprabhu through literature, making the waterfall of his ecstasy into a lake that we could bathe in. You know, take it a step further to make a corporation. This is a song that's called ISKCON or whatever, you know, and so forth. So, yeah, then, you know, you want to support that. If the guru doesn't have a mission, he'll tell you, you know, spend your money on Vaishnava Seva, do Vaishnava Seva, do Vaishnava Seva, do Vaishnava Seva. And people in India will do that. So that should be something that you take, you know, pleasure in as a householder. Then you do something for your livelihood that's, you know, not hopefully that aligns with your, you know, worldview, and yeah, something like that. That help? Yeah. Well, the householder is thinking, let me maintain Krishna. You see. Monk is thinking, Krishna will maintain me, and the household is thinking, I will maintain Krishna. Yeah. And this is his idea of Gopritvevaranam Tatha. Right? So I will donate for the festival to, the opportunity comes to pay for the, Sunday feast or whatever, Govardhan Puja, or looking for opportunities like this. Okay, I think we should stop there. Or Bhakti Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanande.
Bhaktivedanta Tripurari Maharaj, Srila Guru Maharaj ki jai.